Time Team are hot on the trail of one of the very few places in Britain which shows evidence of human habitation dating from the early Stone Age. Surprisingly, it's down there, in the grounds of a Centre Parks holiday village. See you by the pool. Welcome to Suffolk. Lovely, isn't it? This is what most of England would have looked like 400 millennia ago to the small Stone Age population who lived here. Lots of lush vegetation and plenty of animal life, including lions, rhinos and elephants. And contrary to what you see in the movies, definitely no dinosaurs. Time Team have come here to Centre Parks in Elveden in Suffolk to try to find out more about the Stone Age people who lived and died here 400,000 years ago. And as usual, we've got just 3 days to do it. So, where exactly are we now?
Well, we're still in the middle of the Centre Parks complex, but we're in an old clay pit, which was a brick-making place in the Victorian times.
So what's that got to do with the Stone Age?
Well, down the side of the clay pit, there is a layer dating from the Old Stone Age.
How do we know it's Stone Age?
Because it's got hand axes in it, and it's got the flakes where they were making the hand axes.
So is that all we're likely to find?
Well, it is, but it's a very important site, and it dates to 400,000 years ago.
So that'll be the oldest site we've ever done, won't it?
And so it's a very, very unusual and rare site, very important site.
If it's that rare a site, how come we're allowed to dig here?
Because we're working with the British Museum archaeologists. Nick Ashton, he's a great friend of Phil's, and he's been digging here for several years.
Phil, you started without us.
Well, there's so much muck to get away from the front of the face, so we got a JCB in for that, and now we're back hand digging, and you can see we're straight onto in situ archaeology.
So what have we got here, Nick?
Effectively, we have a riverbank. You see this dark horizon here. This is an ancient land surface at the edge of the river. Yeah. The river flowing in front of us, behind us here. Through the middle of the pit, we have a chalk cliff on the far side, which we can see in section. We think there's probably a chalk cliff the other side.
So there would have been like a narrow gorge running through it?
Absolutely.
With people living in it, Stone Age people?
People living, or at least knapping flint, making flint tools on the edge of this river.
How much do we know about these people, Nick?
Well, very little, because we've got very few sites and very few finds off those sites. It's very rare to find something in this sort of situation, isn't it? Where you've got a piece of the original ground surface to work on.
It'd be great if we could find a skeleton, wouldn't it?
I think there's a very, very remote chance, extremely remote. These are casts of 3 fragments of one skull that was found on one site. And from another site, we've got 2 teeth and a leg bone. And these are 100,000 years older than the site we're on. And that's the whole assemblage of human remains of this period from England. I mean, I'm afraid, it would be a dream come true, wouldn't it?
With so little physical evidence remaining of these early humans, we can only guess at how they lived here along the riverbank over 400,000 years ago. With virtually no chance of finding any human remains in our excavations, one of Time Team's main tasks this weekend is to see if we can find any traces of plants and animals that lived alongside early humans. This could complete our picture of the prehistoric river valley habitat.
We've got Andy and Simon here who are going to run the environmental part of the project. Hopefully tell us from animals, beetles, pollen and so on, what's going on.
So Simon, what exactly are we going to be doing?
In this trench we're going to cut back into the face using a machine, removing this spoil that's been tipped off the edge of the quarry, and take the face back to in situ deposits. We know in this part of the site we're finding shells, and there's a good chance we'll find animal bones as well.
What kind of animals might we find?
We're looking for voles, my favourite animal.
Why are voles so exciting?
Not voles. Voles are really great animals. They're very important for us. We can find our way around the last 2 million years or so just using vole teeth.
So if Simon and I can get enough vole teeth from these deposits here, we can confirm the age of this material.
So you use them as datable evidence in the same way that Roman archaeologists use bits of pottery?
It's exactly the same principle, yeah.
You're going to have to shift an awful lot of soil to find the small bones of those.
Yeah, we reckon, what, about a tonne?
Yes.
Yeah, what we're going to be doing, we'll take all this material from behind us, we're going to be put it into the buckets, tipping in some hydrogen peroxide to fizz it up into a kind of goo, and then in the morning we'll come back and hopefully we'll be able to tip that glue through the sieve. Hey presto, vole teeth.
And then you'll tell us what the conditions were like, what the environment was like from the vole teeth.
Yes.
And that is incredible, isn't it, to be able to do that?
We are short of manpower, aren't we? Where's Carenza?
Well, you know, I said that these sites were very, very rare. There is, in fact, another one 5 miles away at Barnham.
The Barnham clay pit, like our main site at Elveden, has been the focus of previous British Museum excavations. But this one hasn't been used for over 5 years, hence the jungle.
Oh, right, so is this your section?
This is one of our main archaeological areas, yeah.
Oh, right, and this is your layer of plastic protecting your old excavation, presumably?
Yeah, we put that down in '94 when we left. Yeah.
So what do you want us to do here over the next few days?
Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to cut a section at the back wall there.
Sort of
just
clean it up?
Clean it up, compare it with what we've got at Elveden.
And that'll give us the geological layers for
Yeah,
the comparison.
precisely, yeah. And then take another spit, another layer off of the cobbles, looking for artefacts.
And other bones, again, to compare with the sort of thing we're getting the other side.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it's a big job, isn't it? We need to get a move on.
Yeah, we need to clear the foliage first, so Cameron.
Here's a flake you might want to have a look at, Phil.
Have a look. Good God. That is in mint condition, isn't it?
Certainly is.
Isn't that a beautiful flake? Look at the edge on it.
God, that's razor sharp.
Job. Is that the way you normally get them, like that?
Yep,
In that
from,
condition?
From the area we had last year, on the land surface, they're all absolutely mint condition, just like that.
Let's dig it out, because, I mean, the weather doesn't look like it's going to help us much. It's going to come on to rain. You see, the only difference between it now and when it was, well, dropped there 400,000 years is got that, just that slight staining on it from the minerals in the clay.
That's right.
And other than that, well, yeah, you could have made it yesterday.
Yeah. Glad I bought my waterproofs.
Do I see it beginning to move?
Yeah, it's ready to come out.
Oh, well, let's go for it. I mean, I've been waiting in anticipation for minutes.
Go for it, Tim.
Go on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There we
oh, look at that.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, what a gem. Look at that. Oh, look at that. It ain't broken either. Look at that. Oh, yeah, it just got that little bit of lipping, look.
Yeah, yeah. Nice and
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that really sort of characteristic profile. That,
Profile of
dead ringer.
Yeah.
Absolutely typical of a hand axe thinning flake,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. You've got the surface of the hand.
Yes, that's right. And it's just going down on the other side, so it achieves the aim of thinning the whole thing down.
Yeah.
What a cracker, eh?
The hand axe was the single most important item made by early man. Crafted by striking or knapping a flint nodule with a hammer stone, it was a hand-sized multi-purpose tool. A hammer striking a flint leaves a scar, the bulb of percussion, and the concentric ripples show the angle of striking. Flake scars on the edge show where the tool was sharpened. The flint artefacts found in Elveden and at Barnham are very similar in age and appearance, so the two sites may once have been connected. Geophysics have been given the task of trying to find out if the same prehistoric river ran through both sites.
John, we really do need to find out where this ancient river channel went, because it's our only way of linking the two sites, really. But it strikes me from your point of view it's going to be very difficult. I mean, it's not archaeology, is it? It's geology, really.
You're actually going to try electrical imaging.
Oh, right, that does sound a bit different.
Well, it could be 6 metres down that we're having to look. And what we've got to try and do is a transect across that river valley.
So you've got all one straight line?
All one straight line. We've got the buildings in the way, we've got the farm machinery in the way. So we're trying to find a line between those.
Have you managed to do that?
Yeah, if we go over here, I can show you the gear. And what we've got is this cable.
Oh, yeah.
That comes from the battery, running the length of the field.
Oh, right,
up past Sue to
up
the
to
hedge.
the ranging pole.
That's right. And at every 5 metres, we've got these probes.
Oh, right, yeah.
So we're sending electric currents into the ground, and we use the first pair of probes to measure the resistance at that point.
Right.
Then we switch to the next set of probes.
Which are further apart.
Further apart, and measure that point. And we do that all the way along the line. And so we're actually gradually build up a picture, a vertical section, getting more deeply into the ground.
Finding this ancient river or paleo channel is of immense importance to paleontologists. If geophysics can establish the route of the river, it could help to locate further Stone Age sites in the area. Stuart, meanwhile, is doing it the hard way, by walking the fields between Barnham and Elveden to see if there's any evidence of the paleo channel nearer the surface. At Elveden, it's all hands to the pumps, in an attempt to protect the trench and stop the site reverting to a prehistoric swamp.
This looks like a rather ramshackle outfit.
Absolutely.
Safely covered, the digging goes on, but it takes an expert eye to tell whether the tiny fragments of flint are man-made or of natural origin.
Different sort of archaeology for me, this, isn't it?
Well, it's nice of you to increase your education, Mick. I think it's good for your education.
I've come to the feet of the master.
I don't know about that. Effectively, you've got something that is coming round here, but it's coming back all the way up there.
Right.
It shouldn't be doing that. No way that can be. No way that can be percussion. That ain't been hit off.
Yeah, so it's probably frost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
And you don't disagree?
I don't disagree.
20 metres along the cliff face, we've got a team of diggers hard at work cleaning up one of the British Museum's earlier excavations.
So what's going on in this trench then, Nick? I noticed it up on the bank, but we haven't had a good look at it yet.
In effect, we've got the same river edge, but this time, instead of a river bank, we've actually got a beach, a cobble beach.
So this is the same as the one down there? It's part of the same...
Part of the same river bank.
Right,
yeah.
Right, but it's much more cobbly than clay.
That's one of the interesting things, that they're actually using these cobbles to make some of the stone tools.
So what we've got marked here then is every flake and blade that's been identified in the top of the cobbles.
Yeah, all the white markers are marking flakes that have been knapped, possibly in this spot.
What are we going to do? We're going to take this away then and look underneath it?
What we'll do is record where the artefacts are, lift them, bag them, and then we're going to take off another seam of cobbles and see whether there are any more artefacts underneath.
Because presumably it could have built up with cobbles and blades, and it may be a certain depth.
We think in this area the material is slightly moved, not very far, and so you've got one or two artefacts mixed in with the cobbles.
Okay.
The laborious process of trying to extract 60 buckets of clay to find traces of preserved organic material carries on, despite the weather.
So, Simon, what are the chances of getting mammal teeth, small mammal teeth from here?
Very good, I think. We're finding fragments of shell, quite large fragments of shell, probably freshwater mussel.
A freshwater mussel shell in the clay is a good indicator that the organic evidence may not have been destroyed by the passage of 400,000 years.
What it means is that there's bone in there.
There will be bone in this. This will be exciting. Dig!
With only another 48 buckets to go, Andy begins to add hydrogen peroxide to the samples. Overnight, the chemical should dissolve the clay and reveal any organic material, if the rain doesn't dilute it too much. Carenza! With everyone else on flood alert, guess who's been promoted to T-boy? Carenza!
Okay.
Yeah, I've got you.
Oh, yeah. So it's a bit
Look what I got.
Oh, wonderful. Wow, that will cheer everyone up, actually. It's a bit sort of wet, gloomy and depressing
It's
down here.
taken
Really.
forever to find you.
It was taking forever to get on this afternoon, to be quite honest.
Tease up. Well, you've got on really well, haven't you?
We actually, bearing in mind the weather, we have done, I think. We've been cleaning up the sort of vertical section now, which will tell us about the geological layers that we compare to Elveden. You can see it's all sort of got gungy and silty underneath it. It's been covered up like this for 5 years. So if we start to clean it up, reveal, these are the cobbles that the old the side of the old riverbed, basically, and this is where they were sitting, getting the flint and working it into tools. So we'll clean all that back and then carry on down.
If we look at what we've got here, we've got a bit of the cobble band that we've never exposed before at the back there, and hopefully we will get these fresh in situ artefacts that haven't been moved, possibly even refitting.
And they'll be sitting on top of the cobble band.
They'll be sitting on top of the cobble band, and then when we take our spit out from the main area here, we'll get the stuff that's been reworked over time and possibly slid down cracks, and they might be a little bit more rolled and abraded.
At Elveden, it's still pouring, but Phil's taken the opportunity to practice the finer points of flint knapping. Victor also braves the elements to capture Phil and fellow craftsman John Lord as they use Stone Age tools in an attempt to make a prehistoric hand axe.
Hiya. Hello, Tony.
Just about finished it?
It's coming along. I mean, I've got a bit more thinning to do down here and then that'll be ready for use.
So what would they have used that for?
Just about any purpose you could think of. I mean, the great thing that everybody compares it to is the Swiss Army knife, you know. You name it, they used it for it.
They're good butchery tools, and I also processed some ox bone with them recently.
How about cutting?
It's all done in a few minutes. Yeah, cuts excellently.
That's quite efficient, isn't it? You wouldn't have thought so.
Going to make a spear tomorrow. We're also going to try and light fire with creating a spark from the flint.
Well, let's hope that the rain's eased off by that time, at least to give you a fighting chance.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Okay, cheers, Tony.
Bye, Tony.
How did we get on down there today, Mick?
Oh, I think pretty well, despite the weather. You know, we've done a lot of cleaning and both sites are ready to be taken apart now.
And tomorrow?
Well, the main thing we thought was to join the two together. Then that'll give us a really nice long section running right up the side of the river.
Excellent.
And then we're going to go down where the buried soil is, because that's where the hand axes have been found, and we're going to go in that area.
Here's John and Carenza, hopefully with the geophysics results.
Well, it's nice and colourful.
These are from Barnham, yeah?
That's Barnham,
yeah.
and this is a transect right across the valley looking for the small channel. And this is where the big channel is, and within it, I think we've actually got 2 or 3 smaller braided channels.
That's good, yeah.
So it's like we've got a load of little channels with little islands in between them.
And you're going to do the same thing tomorrow on this side?
At this end, and see if we get the same sort of picture.
So join us after the break. Hopefully we'll find out more about Stone Age Man tomorrow, and hopefully we might even find a tool even better than the one that Phil made for us today.
It's cracking, isn't it? Look at that.
It's day 2 and for the moment the sun's shining, so we've made an early start and extended Trench 1 to try and see if the prehistoric cobble beach we found yesterday continues along the face of the clay pit. In their environmental trench, Andy and Simon finally managed to extract their 60 buckets of samples, but things aren't looking too good.
Not going down very well, is it? Oh, we've got a problem. Yeah. I'm not going to find anything in there. Oh God, look at that. It's like Play-Doh. Imagine peroxide's just not breaking it down. You're going to need a week.
We haven't got a week, Simon. We haven't got a week. What do you reckon?
We've got one day.
We could try, as it's very chalky, we could try something like weak acetic acid, pickling vinegar, something like that.
5 miles away at Barnham, Carenza and her team are carefully cleaning the mud from their prehistoric cobble beach and extending into the face of the clay pit. John and Phil are testing the efficiency and sharpness of the flint hand axe, the first stage in making a prehistoric spear.
See, the amazing thing looking at that, John, is that if I found that, I wouldn't actually think it was a tool. You'd think it was an unfinished piece, maybe a piece of flint that somebody had a few flakes off of, wanted either to use the flakes or just gave up on the tool. But seeing you use it, it's a really efficient tool. Oh, got ash going. It's definitely going, yeah.
After successfully finding a river channel at Barnham yesterday, John needs to get his bearings at Elveden for the second part of the geophysics survey.
Well, I brought you here because there's a very good view over the clay pit.
I hope it's a bit simpler here.
Well, I'll show you what we know and then you can see what you think. You see over by the tent round there, where we're digging?
That's where Phil is.
That's where Phil is. And the riverbank is sort of back 10 metres or so to the left of that.
Okay.
And then this clay pit is actually occupies the river valley. And then the other side is about sort of 10 metres or so back behind that big excavation where the sampling's going on. So it's about 50 metres wide, and they reckon it's going roughly in that sort of direction through, you know, almost into the sun.
I mean, that's where we've been working,
Yeah,
about 5 miles away.
Towards Barnham, in that direction over there. The question is whether you can find it, you see.
Yes. It's just a question if we can get 125 metres
Well,
through this.
perhaps along the paths. You know,
Yeah,
that's
well,
probably the obvious
See
place.
if we can
isn't
find
it?
a way through.
Hundreds of metres of cable are needed for the electrical imaging survey, but John's hampered by Centre Park's natural landscaping and man-made barriers.
Just get this one right. Let's try again. That's okay, Sue. Right? Cup of tea?
Yeah.
You may even take a busted
Hey,
trowel.
Phil, this has changed a bit, hasn't it?
Gosh, you're telling me. I mean, I've only just got here myself, but I mean, when I went away last night, there was a tree standing here. I don't know what Nick's been up to, but he's certainly got excited about it.
What's going on, Nick?
We seem to have 2 levels of human activity.
2?
Yeah, total surprise.
How long have you been digging here?
5 years.
And this is the first time that you've discovered 2 separate layers?
Absolutely.
This
Yep.
is important, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Really
Critical.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet you're glad you invited time to.
I certainly am.
How do you know that there are 2 different layers of...
Down here we have the cobble beach layer.
That's the one that appears over in our trench over there, is it?
Yeah, yeah. We've got artefacts over there. Lo and behold.
Good.
Artefacts here.
Hey, that's a cracking piece, isn't it? Hey, look at that.
That's not just an arbitrary piece of stone.
No
coming out,
way.
is it?
I was making flakes exactly the same as that when I was making the hand axe yesterday.
And what have you got on top of that?
On top of that, we've got this orange sediment here, which is material that's washed in down the edges.
Yeah.
Okay. And above that, we've got the land surface that we were looking at yesterday, again with different artefacts.
We've got to see this thing in plan. We've got to see whether there are any more tools distributed across this surface. So the obvious thing to do is chop back down. Looking at that, it's going to be devilish hard going, but we've got to do it.
Do you think we can do that by the end of the day?
I think if you give me a pick, you probably will.
Oh, there's one right down here. Carenza and her Barnham team are making good progress in cleaning back the cobble beach layer.
Yeah, that's a nice flake, Carenza.
That's the top, the bulb of percussion, isn't it, where it's been struck?
Yeah, and you can see the ripples coming down where the fracture force has gone through the flint.
I mean, we've got, well, but nearly 10 finds out of this trench, haven't we now? Are you happy with that?
It's more than we expected, really, in terms of the fact that all we've done at the moment is just clean up. After removing the plastic, we haven't taken off our spit. And we've got some really nice things. This is a particularly good one, Carenza. We've got these facets here, which, while in a cobble band, there's always a possibility that this has just been caused naturally, but this does look like it might have been reworked just to maybe sharpen the edge. Or
Just to sharpen it up,
Yeah.
sort of, so you've been using it to cut or something, it's got blunt like that and you just knock another chip off, knock another chip off like that and go sharp fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, these have all been, they're all in the cobbles, aren't they? These are the ones that have been rolled about in the river.
Yeah.
I mean, this one I've just found, that's quite sort of knocked about at the edges, isn't
yeah,
it?
the edges have been damaged quite a bit, and there's lots of natural chips around them.
Carenza to Tony. Tony, we're getting some really exciting finds from this trench now. I'd really like you to come and have a look at it, and Phil as well, if he's there.
Yeah, I'll bring him over straight away.
Could you possibly bring an intact, a whole hand axe as well? It'd be really quite useful to have that if you've got one. Over.
That's fine. I'll see you in a quarter of an hour. Bye.
Okay.
I'm going to Barnham. It's raining again. It's also pretty wet in the environmental trench, where Anne is sieving the samples in an attempt to separate any organic remains from the wet clay. Despite the addition of pickling vinegar to break the clay down even further, it's still very lumpy, and they've now got just over a day left to find those elusive vole teeth. But before the samples can be sorted and analysed, they have to be left to dry in the sun. It's just round this corner here.
Good Lord, it's like a jungle, isn't it?
Well, that's a bit tidier than when I last saw it. Well,
It's like Elveden revisited. I mean, with this sort of cobbled surface. And are these all the finds on it?
Yeah, we've had a really good run of finds, actually. And this is where we had, I think, the find we're most excited about, isn't it?
This is our big find.
Phil, did you bring a hand axe?
Yeah, we're wondering why you've been wanting to ask me to bring that over.
Sneak it into the trench and pretend we just found it. You know?
Oh, you've got one!
What do you think of those?
Good Lord. There's no question. That's part of a hand axe, isn't it? You've got flaking on that edge and then flaking again across there. I mean, that is broken, but I guess it's going to fit in... What? Yeah. In fact, it's a pretty good fit, isn't it?
Gosh, it is, isn't it? That's just remarkably close. What about that bit then?
This here is sloppy knapping. I mean, it's up and across and down. I mean, this sort of right angle, there's no way you're going to... That's pretty awful. But in his defence, I mean, you've got a big thermal fracture in there. That's a natural flaw in the flint. He probably didn't even know it was there. And as he's napping away at this end, banging away at it, and the vibrations gradually build up and build up, that bit drops off. End result, you swear. This is bad raw material. And this is bad luck, because, I mean, this is what we call end shock. And you can bet your life on it. When he's working at this end, this is the end that flies off. And I don't suppose there's a flint napper in Christendom who hasn't had this at some stage or another. I mean,
I've had it.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time.
I've got my own bit of end shock. The consensus at the other trench is that they need your labour up there and that we ought to close this one down. What do you think?
Yeah, I could live with that.
We could certainly do with some extra help over there.
Right.
I mean, there are areas of cobbles that really do need...
This is not a bad point to stop, is it? I mean, we've cleaned up this area, that area's cleaned up, we've done most of the recording, so if you really need to pull people off this trench...
So you're almost in a point where you can lift and
Lift and leave,
put it to bed.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
All right, we'll see you over there.
John Lord's making good use of basic flint tools in making us a prehistoric spear. First the side branches are stripped away, then the bark. Then the most important part, the business end, honed to a seriously sharp point using only a thin but razor-sharp flake of flint. Victor's included in his painting all the known elements of the river valley. But what about its inhabitants? So how were the people who lived on our riverbank 400,000 years ago related to us?
We're not really sure about that, Tony. They might be a little evolutionary offshoot, they might be our direct ancestors. What's important, though, from our point of view, is to know roughly what they look like. What we really need is a face.
This is what we laughingly call modern man.
If we can superimpose on that something that might be mixed skull...
This is a modern skull.
This is a modern skull. You can see a lot of the features that characterise modern humans. It's got a high cranial vault, as it's called, smallish face, and the most important feature here, a pointy chin. If we go back to, say, a late Neanderthal, late Neanderthals have got a big cranial vault, but it's flatter and wider, and it's got this bun on the back. Very big face, and it's got a very strong jaw, but there's no pointy chin.
What does Neanderthal mean?
They were first found in the Neander Valley in Germany. It just characterises a particular skull shape.
But they were actually probably quite smart.
They were probably as bright as us. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. If we go back a stage further to the Steinheim skull, here we've got a decent face to go on, and we can use this to try and reconstruct what our people here might have looked like.
But it hasn't got a jaw?
No jaw with this one, but we do have fossil jaws which tell us that these Neanderthal characters were still present back 400,000 years ago.
Yeah. So this is what Mick would look like if he had the skull of someone who was living 400,000 years ago.
That's a pretty close approximation to it.
It's marginally better looking than the modern Mick, isn't it? Fortunately, Mick was concentrating on what Stuart was saying.
This business of whether the sites are connected by river channel,
Yeah.
that's some ideas.
Ah.
Over to the east of the Barnham pit, I've got something really interesting there. I've got a brown stripe across a field,
Oh, yeah.
which I think is really significant, brown stripe, because it's when you look at it, it's a whole load of flint nodules ploughed out through the ploughed soil. And I think that might be a continuation of the river channel in that direction.
Right.
Now, it'd be really nice to prove if we could run a geophysical line across there to see whether they get the same results. If we can demonstrate the linearity of the channel there and down here, I think that will give us fairly conclusive proof that in the Pleistocene period we have a whole set of either a single channel or a number of channels, but all flowing in this direction.
And you were arguing about what to do tomorrow. I'll raise that then.
You can lend some support there, can you?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, yeah. I mean, if that turns out to be prehistoric, that'd be wonderful. This tea's not very good, is it?
With the Barnham site closed down, Carenza and her team arrive at our main trench at Elveden, ready, willing and possibly able to find that elusive hand axe.
What's in for duty?
What are we going to get them to do, Nick?
Well, we cut this long section going round there, which links this cobble beach horizon, which you can see there. You can trace it right the way through that section, and I want you to remove the block of clay from over there down to the beach level.
OK.
So if you start digging maybe from that end, and we'll come from this end.
We'll meet in the middle.
And of course, there is the extra. You've got to find us a hand. Don't laugh, don't laugh. Because what was it, a couple of 3 years ago?
2 or 3 years ago.
Just underneath here, Nick found 2 hand axes.
Well,
so they are there.
We found those couple of bits yesterday, so let's hope the
Well,
winning
you've
streak...
got your eye in, haven't you?
Let's hope our
Go
winning
on,
streak...
get yourself on.
You will.
End of day 2, and tomorrow we're going to pour all our resources into that trench there because we've got just one more day in which to find a complete 400,000-year-old hand axe. But before we go tonight, we've got one more task. Get our dinner. Well, if Phil doesn't improve his Stone Age talent soon, I think we're going to be very hungry tonight. Join us after the break.
I did try.
Not hard enough. Come on.
Can I have another go?
Yes. We've lost the spear.
Tony?
Yeah?
Got a minute. Come here and have a look at this.
It's the beginning of day 3, and already Phil looks like he's up to something.
We've got our first complete tool. Look, you see it's been a flake that's been struck off there, but not only that, somebody's actually taken a hammerstone and they've trimmed it round there. You see these, each an individual flake scar where the hammer has landed and made this concave notch. Now, these are ideal tools for making spears. Anything that needs whittling. See, the beauty of them is that they won't actually slip out of the diameter of the piece of wood or bone that you're scraping. Wonderfully efficient tools. And then when they're blunt, you maybe make another notch and you can use it again.
So that might have been used on something like the spear that we made yesterday. Unfortunately, Phil's skill with a spear wasn't up to the standards of early hunters, and I had to make a trip to the local butcher's to get tonight's dinner. Once again demonstrating the versatility of flint tools, John made short work of the haunch of venison. Using a combination of sharp flakes and a hand axe, he easily skinned and disjointed the meat. Yesterday, the Geophysics survey proved the existence of a prehistoric river channel emerging from the Elveden site and heading towards Barnham. Useful information for archaeologists, as they may be able to find other sites of human habitation in this long-lost river valley. But John's got one last job, to investigate the mysterious brown stripe that Stuart's discovered in a field near the Barnham clay pit.
You know where the entrance to the farm is, don't you, John?
I have been doing something the past few days, you know.
You see where the pig houses are?
Oh, it's not
we're
in a
going
pig
over
field.
there. Yeah, it's just beyond the pig field. Why, don't you like pigs?
I'm vegetarian, but nothing to do with it. We've had to do several surveys in pig fields, and they're diabolical with all the crisscrossing wires.
Yeah.
Absolute nightmare. So I'm glad it's not actually in there.
Do they chew the wires then? Is that what they...
Well, they wouldn't chew the wires in this system because they'd soon know about
Instant
it.
bacon, would it be?
Bacon tonight, yeah.
See this ridge here, John? You see how you got this brown staining?
It's actually on the brow of the ridge.
That's right, that's that clay band being ploughed out. And then down below it is where all the flint's been ploughed. Look at this size of this. There's whole concentrations of flint nodules this size. That's what all this stuff is here. It's the ploughing's gone backwards and forwards and dragged it all out. This should be the same edge of the channel that's been found in the pit.
So if we do a transect across this line, and then we should get the profile if it's still surviving to any extent.
Hopefully, yes. I mean, we should get, if we get chalk over that side, that might define the edge of it. This clay should be right on the edge of it, with the flints being ploughed out, so hopefully the channel's that side of us.
Right.
As the environmental trench is being closed down, Andy makes a disturbing discovery. They may have taken all their samples from too high in the clay, at a level where all the ancient organic material may have been destroyed by natural acids present in the groundwater.
This is where we took our samples from yesterday. This is where we took our 60 buckets out. And we've actually processed 45 of those and reduced it down to a residue. And we're going to sort that and see what we can find in it.
Oh, so there is still hope?
It doesn't look very rich.
Then there's no way we're going to get them out of this orange stuff.
What do you reckon, Solomon?
I don't think so. Everything above here, this top part of the section's been completely devoid of any remains.
Wow. That's a bit of a disappointment, really, isn't it?
Well,
particularly 60 buckets of...
You don't know how gutted I am, mate. You do not know.
To try and clarify once and for all the position, depth and age of these ancient river deposits, Andy decides to open a last-minute trench. Andy, it's a bit late to be starting something new, isn't it?
Well, we know that, but what we want to do is try and find the bottom layer in this site. The earliest deposit in which we're going to get any organic remains.
And how much earlier would that be than the stone tools that we're finding up there?
Probably about 20,000 years earlier, we reckon. It'll be the earliest part of the warm phase in which people were living in this area.
So it's about 420,000 years ago?
About that, yeah.
And how much further down do you reckon you're going to have to dig?
We reckon 4 metres. And Simon here is going to do it with his pole. He's going after it with an auger, and it's going to be hard work.
With our full complement of diggers hard at work on our main trench, the prehistoric layers in the section are now clearly visible.
This is a lot cleaner and looking very colourful now, isn't it?
Yes, I think it's a lot clearer. It shows the cobble beach down here, and
Yeah.
you've got this land surface up there, these two layers we were talking about yesterday.
Now you've extended it, we can trace that all the way round, can we?
We can. You can follow the cobble beach right the way through
Right
here.
to the corner here, where
Yep.
Katie is, yeah. And it goes all the way round now. We've joined the two trenches together
Yeah,
then.
you can trace it through, right through to where Carenza's team are working.
Oh, and you're getting lots of finds from here as well.
Yeah, we've just had a really nice find here, a little scraper, I think. There's another tool from the site which is nice, and it's different to that sort of spear sharpening thing that you had earlier.
Yeah.
So that would have been used something like that?
Well, probably more like this. Scraping along, probably used for cleaning the fatty gunge from the inside of deer hides.
Is this the sort of density you'd expect from this sort of layer?
Well, I'm hoping once we get really down onto the cobbles, it's actually going to be, much richer.
Right.
So,
The other thing is we're getting some really nice little pieces, tiny little flakes. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're very sharp. They've not gone very far, so obviously whatever they're doing, at some point they're doing it here.
Tiny little chippings that you get in the flint knapping process, and if the artefacts had moved, then you'd expect them to be completely washed away.
Right.
But we're getting those, which means we've probably got knapping very near to the spot.
So you're in the right place again, it looks like.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's obviously going to get very exciting in the next couple of hours.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up.
That's great.
Yeah.
With our venison dinner expertly butchered and ready to be cooked, All that remains is for Phil and John to light the fire.
Are you sweating yet?
I am sweating now, really.
Using only prehistoric methods, of course. Striking a flint against a large piece of iron pyrites to make a spark is Boy Scout stuff.
Good Lord, it's just
Sadly, we didn't have a Boy Scout.
nothing happening at all, is there? Wow. Well,
I mean,
are we
that-
going
that
to
would be-
persist with this? Or...
I think I might be able to produce.
Yeah, OK, let's go with that. Look at that. Go on, yes! That should keep the cave bears at bay tonight.
After almost 2 hours, the auger has hit pay dirt 6 metres below the Elveden site, the most ancient level that could still provide clues to the prehistoric environment.
Tony, I think we're there.
Why'd you say that?
Look at this. Look at the colour of that mud. This is the black goo that we were looking for. This is the organic mud that underlies this entire site.
What does it comprise of, that black goo?
It's a very organic clay.
Clay with probably quite a lot of plant debris in it. And there it is.
When you say organic matter, what kind of stuff?
Well, imagine your village pond with all the leaves going into it. You know, that kind of smelly goo that you get round the edge of a pond?
Yeah.
This is what it becomes with time.
So 420,000 years ago, we had this black goo covering what's now Suffolk.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then you got the development of a proper drainage system. After a glaciation, the land's left in a very uneven condition with lots of little lakes and bogs all over the place. And then people who were probably migrating across continental Europe would come to the area that's now Britain, and they'd live along the riverbanks just as they are on our site here today.
The black goo represents our oldest deposits and the flint tools our youngest. Andy and Simon's experiment should help us fill the dating gaps between.
Ooh, got a big fish tooth.
It's definitely a tent shandy. Something new, a new species
Oh, wow.
for the list.
Hey!
You're getting some good results out of this.
Yeah, look at this.
Wow, what is it's a tench, is it?
It's
too?
tench, it's tooth of fish, and it's the biggest thing we've found so far.
Wow, it's not that big on reality, is it?
I'm afraid it's that thing there.
It's really rather small.
Is that all you've got from those 45 buckets of soil you sieved?
You like to rub these things in, don't
Well,
you?
I was just wondering if you hadn't got trays and trays of it elsewhere.
That's it so far.
And we've got a group of other fish as well. So if we move along and look at these, we've got a pike, this pointed tooth here is a pike tooth. This is an amphibian bone,
Oh yeah,
a frog or a toad.
gosh.
And this small group of bones here, these are rodent bones, including 2 fragments of teeth.
These are really exciting. This is the stuff that we've been after.
Right, this is what I've gathered, is the voles or whatever, they're going to give you the crucial dating evidence.
Yeah.
Is that right? Now, have you got that from them?
We haven't got well preserved enough material to be able to identify these two species, but this tells us that they're out there in those deposits.
So you just have to do another 45 buckets and you'll be there.
Things are looking bad, Simon.
I'm not going to, no. Someone else can.
Do you think that this is contemporary with the human occupation here?
Almost certainly.
Oh.
And what we found in the sample is a tiny flint
That's
chip.
fantastic. Oh, you couldn't have hoped for that, could you? That's a brilliant sort of...
Yeah.
I tell you what, we've had flakes very, very similar to that from our trench. So some of these tiny little waste flakes, same sort of flint, very fresh, very sharp.
In the process of attempting to confirm Stuart's theory about the mysterious brown stripe in the Barnham field, Mick seems to have made some new friends.
They know I won't eat them, you see.
That's no good for me.
Oh, you must be the farmer then.
That's right.
Hello, I'm Mick.
I'm David.
Hello. I was looking for you because I gather you have found some archaeological stuff.
Got 1 or 2 bits and pieces there.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Look at that. that's part of a hand axe, isn't it? It's going to have the
That's
other
right. It's
the other part like that. So
2/3 apparently.
yeah.
So the archaeologists tell me that they could tell me anything.
No, I think that's probably right. That's probably right. They wouldn't tell me anything. We were interested here because of this ridge in the field.
Yeah.
We saw it on the maps and the air photos, and so Stuart, I don't know if you've met Stuart, but he thought this may be one of these old rivers, and I think Mark was. Let's give him a shout. Mark.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. Something like that.
Is that from here?
Yeah, David's just got it out of his pocket.
Oh, that's enormous. He would have been quite a
Yeah.
hefty one as well, yeah.
Yeah. But you haven't got anything like that from there?
Well, no, all I've got over there is a lot of naturally broken flint, a lot of flint that's been broken by the plough.
Yeah.
There's nothing of this sort of what we come to expect from the Barnham cobble band, which is this very characteristic sort of orangey or yellowy staining.
There's a lot of these round about.
Every pocket something comes out of. That's a nice
one,
scraper, isn't it? Lovely that is.
The nice thing about these two things, David, is that here you've got an artefact which is 400,000 years old, and here you've got an artefact which is, say, 4,000 years old. So you've got humans living and working on this site for all of that time. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Although no more flint tools were found in the field, geophysics confirmed that the brown stripe was once part of another prehistoric river channel. Back in the incident room, Stuart brings Nick Ashton up to date.
I know you've been stuck in a clay pit for 3 days, but I thought you would like to try and find out more information about the potential connection in a river channel between Elveden and Barnham.
Yeah, I'd love to find out what's been happening.
On here, I've plotted out where all the Paleolithic finds are. There's Barnham, there's Elveden. All these circles are where there's been Paleolithic finds. The important and the exciting thing about this is how they're all in that west to east trend. There's a line there, a line there, and a line there. These triangles are chalk pits, trending east-west. Now, if you'd asked me before we started work to some extent with this information, was there a potential river channel between the two? Yeah. I would have said it was going to follow the line of this clay band down here.
Yes. Okay.
Well, with the work that John and the geophysics team have done, they've proved that a channel is coming in that southeast direction directly along that line of pits, and also to the east of Barnham, where they've taken 2 transects, they've also demonstrated that there is a channel going that way. Now, if you put that information on top of this, what that seems to indicate is you've got a west-east trend for a river pattern, in effect.
3 parallel rivers.
That's right, possibly with connections between them. So I think we can demonstrate there's a channel along that line between there and there. Yeah. And there's a channel along that line at Barnham in that direction. So we've got it between there and there. The only bit we can't actually prove is that small bit in the middle. So what the evidence is indicating is that we've actually got 3 river channels, of which yours is the middle one, running in this west to east direction.
So that's completely different to the present drainage pattern.
That's right, which is south-north. Right. Do you believe it?
It's the most convincing evidence I've seen. Yeah, I think I do.
It's almost the end of day 3, and it looks like our Stone Age chef has successfully completed his cookery tasks. And back on the main site, we've almost completed our weekend's work. The hundreds of artefacts we've uncovered may just look like pieces of flint to you and I, but they encapsulate 5 minutes of someone's time as they sat on a riverbank and made a hand axe. And we've found them exactly where they fell almost 500,000 years ago. 10 to 7 and they're still hard at it. These stone tools may not look much, but when you think how incredibly old they are, finding them has been the archaeological equivalent of finding a needle in a 500,000-year-old haystack that's been beaten up by a whole procession of glaciers. Holding these in my hands is really amazing. These are some of the oldest things that we've ever found on Time Team. Not bad for just 3 days in the old Stone Age. Not only that, but it looks as though Phil's got his dinner as well. What's it like?
Delicious.
Gonna cut me a bit?